It's 11:30 p.m. at my house and my PlayStation controller is in my hand. My eyes see guns and a black suit on the TV screen. Violent video games do not encourage violence. That is saying anyone that plays a violent video game will become a murderer. Maturity comes in with it because most games are rated M for mature. Being older makes a difference, but maturity comes at any age. Some people think violent video games encourage violence. In Connecticut, there was a murder at a school, and the murderer had played violent video games in the past. Not everyone, but that does not mean who will or had played violent video games will become a murderer. It's not like that at all. That is a faulty generalization. Thus, the statement that becoming a murderer because of violent video games is just factually wrong. There are more factors that would cause violence than just violent video games. Brad J. Bushman, PhD, a professor of communication physiology at Ohio State University, says that we can't say whether the games lead to violent criminal behavior. He also states that having a bad past with family life or being poor also leads to aggression in children. So even if someone plays violent video games, it doesn't mean that they will become aggressive or a murderer. It just simply means that there are other reasons to why someone would become aggressive. But also some people play video games to relieve stress from their lives. Not all people who play violent video games become violent, because there are more possible ways to become aggressive that's not just violent video games. In the past 13 years, the popularity of violent video games, or video games in general, have gone up, as the youth violent crime reached a 32-year low in 2012. This means that since the popularity of games in general have increased, and the youth crime has decreased. This also shows that violent video games don't encourage violence, but instead leads to people to put out existing violent anger, if they have any, onto the video game and on other people. Which actually, violent video games do help. It also means that violent video games do not encourage violence. Plus, most people who do play violent video games just play to have fun, or they like the video games, or they are just really bored with nothing to do. When I'm on my PlayStation 2, I play Hitman. It's based off of the movie Hitman. When I play, there's a lot of drama, gore, and even killing. It is a violent video game, but that won't cause me to become a violent person. I may have violent thoughts, but I will never have violent actions. It helps, though, when you're putting out anger onto the game. It's better than keeping it in, because if you keep it in, you might snap out at someone and actually have a violent action. So even if you play violent video games, it most likely won't cause you to go out and be a murderer. It just relies on the fact if you are mature enough to handle it. Violent video games don't encourage violence because it depends on the maturity of a person to know right from wrong. Violent video games do encourage violence because there have been times where many people have died from one person who played violent video games in their past. Not only violent video games could encourage violence, things like poverty and alcoholic parents can come into effect. But the research Dr. Bushman did, he says that there is no literal proof that shows violent video games can or will encourage violence. Thank you.